We have a particularly meaty briefing, and I've got a lot that we need to share with you today. I'm joined today, as you can see behind me, by the best team I could possibly hope for, the members of Calgary City Council. The couple that you don't see here today have been out in the refuge centres and are continuing to work with their citizens. And I know that all of my council members have been working hard with citizens across the city for the last 48 hours, and I just want to say thank you to all of them for the hard work that they do every day. I'll start with the headline numbers, as we always do. You'll see that these are slightly different from our last briefing. Not very different, but slightly different. On the Bow River, the flow below the Bearspaw Dam is down from 1,700 to 1,600 cubic meters per second. We anticipate some stability at that level. We've had conversations with TransAlta on that, and they too are thinking, based on their dams at Bearspaw and Minnewanka, that we'll see some stability in that level over the next long period of time. You'll recall that I had suggested to you that there were two scenarios. One was the Bow remaining more or less at its level for some time, and the other was a surge in the Bow and higher levels for a shorter period of time. It looks like we will be able to maintain what we have for some period of time. The best number you're going to hear at this briefing is the flow on the Elbow River below the Glenmore Dam, which you'll recall has been sitting just shy of 700 cubic meters per second for the last day or so. We're now down to 550 cubic meters per second. Remember that normal very high flow on the Elbow is 170 cubic meters per second. These are still incredibly high numbers, but we do believe that the peak has passed on the Elbow, and we will continue to see a very gradual decline in the Elbow, which will enable us to do a number of things that I'll talk about shortly. That means our combined flow below the confluence, starting in the community of Englewood, starting at Alderman Carraw's house, is about 2,200 cubic meters per second, which is still close to the maximum, and certainly these numbers are much, 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 much higher than anything we've ever seen before. We are looking at a gradual decline, and I can share with you a 24-hour projection. We believe that the 24-hour projection at the Carraw household will be about 1,800 cubic meters per second. Remember that these numbers are still 4 times higher than they were in the floods of 2005. So we're still dealing with very, very high numbers, but folks, we've turned a corner. However, the number one thing that I need to share with all of you is that we are still in a state of emergency. It's sunny out, it's nice out, but we are still in a state of emergency. And while we anticipate that the Elbow River will return to more manageable levels in 24 to 48 hours, we are still in a state of emergency. Now, some interesting things are going to happen going forward. If we can return the Elbow River to more manageable levels, you're going to start seeing backflow from the Bow River into the Elbow River. The Elbow River will start flowing in the opposite direction for a little while. And for little pieces. And managing that will be a challenging thing. It's going to take a very, very long time to drain. So we have a lot more work to do. Second thing I want to talk about today is people going back to their houses and the process of re-entry. Upper Discovery Ridge is now open. People in certain streets in Discovery Ridge can now return to their homes. The addresses are on the website. We are extremely hopeful that we will be able to return portions of other communities back to the homeowners and the people that live there today and tomorrow. We will be doing that only after very, very careful consideration of the following criteria. Number one, the community and the streets have to be fully accessible. The water has to be off the roads. Number two, the water obviously has to have receded back enough that it is safe for people to go home. And number three, power has to have been restored. You are going to have a briefing at the end of this briefing. I should have said earlier, you'll have a more technical briefing from Chief Burrell, and you will also have a briefing from Dale McMaster with NMAX with some more specifics on power outage. So we will be announcing those reopenings. We will be announcing those reopenings, of course, on the website and through your help with our friends in the media. And it will be for specific streets and specific addresses. And once we have those specific streets and specific addresses up, we will hope that you will help us disseminate that information as best as we can. Number three, the quality of drinking water. Drinking water is safe. Drinking water is safe. There is no need to hoard bottled water. However, as we expected, and as we often do in times of flooding, we must restrict our water use. So I'm announcing now that under the water utility bylaw, we are putting in mandatory outdoor water restrictions. So we are now announcing mandatory outdoor water restrictions. That means that we are asking all Calgarians and businesses to suspend all use of tap water outdoors. All use of tap water outdoors. Therefore, you may not do any of the following activities: washing down outdoor surfaces, exterior building surfaces, sidewalks, driveways, or walkways of any sort. If you really are tempted to do this next one, I have a question for you, because the next one, of course, is watering your lawn. Watering your lawn, garden, trees, and shrubs by any method, including using watering cans. Make sure that your sprinklers are turned off. Make sure that the timers on automatic sprinkler systems are turned out. You may not use water to fill outdoor decorative features. Again, if your fountains, pools, hot tubs, or bird baths are not in fact full, I'm wondering what's going on, but you may not use tap water to fill those things. And you may not use water for construction purposes such as grading or compacting. There are some exceptions under the Water Utilities Bylaw. Of course, we're going to share all this with you, but there are some exceptions. Those include washing outdoor services for health and safety reasons, for childcare facilities, food and beverage establishments, and kennels, and animal care facilities. You may wash your vehicle only if it's necessary to follow health and safety regulations. If you happen to be a nursery, yes, you can water your plants, shrubs, and trees that you're selling. And if you have a license to operate exterior window washing services or car washes. As always, Calgarians can use a rain barrel in order to collect outdoor water, and you can use that outdoor water for any purpose you want. While we are not putting any restrictions on indoor water use, I am urging all Calgarians to continue to restrict their use of water indoors. There's so much sediment and silt and what we call carbon compounds, that means things that used to be alive, in the water, mostly plants, don't get scared, in the water, that it really is important for the plants to be able to catch up. So we're really asking all Calgarians to restrict your water use. I'm telling you, you don't have to do your laundry. Don't run your dishwashers unless you absolutely have to. Limit your showers as short as you can. All of them here did, and still they're standing next to me, so it's good. Use your dishwasher only if absolutely necessary. Turn off your taps when brushing your teeth or shaving. And folks, we're all going to have dirty cars for a while. Do not wash your cars. Okay? And I just want to really thank all Calgarians for their cooperation with water. I've always said that the single most important thing we do as a city that makes a difference to people every minute of every day is providing safe, clean drinking water. 1 billion people in the world don't have that privilege, and we are working hard to make sure that Calgarians will continue having that privilege. Next, I want to talk about downtown. Considerable water remains downtown, throughout downtown. And we are anticipating that we will not be able to restore access to downtown until the earliest in the middle of this week. So it's important for employers to make contingency plans. People are not going to be able to work in their downtown offices in the early part of the week. There may be access to specific buildings in special cases, and we will be making that clear. But for now, downtown remains closed and will continue to be that way for some time. Transportation. There are still a number of road and bridge closures through the city. We anticipate those will continue. People can learn more about those at calgary.ca or by following City of Calgary on Twitter. There is no access to the LRT downtown. The tunnels still have some considerable problems. And again, I will say to Calgarians what I've been saying for the last 2 days. If you want to help your city, the single best thing you can do is stay home. And stay off of the transportation infrastructure, enjoy time with your family, and leave space for both emergency operations and all the people who are working hard at their jobs. So today I say to Calgarians, please limit your travel only to groceries and essential supplies and other essential travel unless you are an emergency worker. There have been some concerns expressed out there about things like looting and price gouging, and I'm here to tell you that we have no evidence that any of that is happening beyond extremely isolated incidents. Calgarians are being incredibly disciplined. Calgarians are looking after their neighbors and looking after one another. So we have no real evidence that any of that is going on, and certainly we have many, many precautions in place, largely with our colleagues at the Calgary Police Service, to ensure that none of that happens. I will remind folks that under a local state of emergency, price gouging is in fact illegal. And we will continue to monitor the situation very, very carefully, but we haven't had very many problems on that yet. So before I take, maybe we'll do the other briefings before we take questions. Is that the right way to do this? That's right. Okay, so I'll call up Chief Burrell. and I will get out of the way, and we'll have a bit of a more technical briefing. Then we'll have Dale McMaster from NMAX.
Thank you, Your Worship. Mine is actually quite short. Just want to emphasize first and foremost the messaging we've been emphasizing since the beginning. Our overriding concern throughout this entire event is and has been public safety, and we're continuing to pursue what we can do, but whatever we do, whether it's reopening communities or whatever moves we're making, are still based on safety being the first priority. The announcement I have to make is that we're changing the perimeter of the evacuation zone in the downtown core. The zone will be slightly enlarged. It will now include 11th and 12th Avenue, between 14th Street on the west and all the way to Center Street on the east. This is due to issues that we're having with traffic flow of vehicles that are in the core and the fact that all the signal lights are out in that area, and we cannot put police officers on all of those intersections. So instead of having to tie up valuable resources, those areas are now going to be contained within the evacuation perimeter for the downtown core. Other than that, the boundary is 11th and 12th Avenue have been added. So it's just below the core, actually. 11th and 12th Avenue, between 14th Street on the west and all the way to Center Street on the east. And we appreciate the continued cooperation of Calgarians. People have been great, but we need your continued cooperation as we continue to move forward, and we'll look at what we can do for restoration in these areas as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Dale.
Thank you. First of all, on behalf of NMAX, we just want to say thank you to the public for their patience in helping us, giving us time to get service restored. As most of you know, electricity and water just aren't, they don't play well together. They don't mix well together. So for your own safety, we encourage that you keep up that patience, and for the safety of our first-line responders, for the public at large, and for the NMAX staff, thank you again for that patience. On top of that, we'd like to advise that the system, the electric system at large, is very stable. It's in extremely good operating condition, and we don't expect any outages beyond those that have already been experienced. We're currently working with SEMA and the other agencies to make sure that we restore power as quickly as possible. The emphasis, again, has got to be on safety, and again, well, that's where that patience aspect comes in. Right now, we've got about 30,000 customers that are without power. That's put an emphasis on the about part of that, and we're working as quickly as we can to get them back on. Our crews are doing well. I think they're doing a great job, and I'd like to extend my personal appreciation for that. And we've certainly appreciated the acknowledgement that we've received through various mechanisms, most notably tweeting that from the support from public. It's more encouraging than you can anticipate, for sure. I'd also like to acknowledge that we've had offers of assistance from other utilities, not only Alberta utilities, but BC and from as far away as Ontario. That's been extremely gratifying. We haven't had to use those resources yet. We're kind of holding them in reserve in case there is a surprise, but overall, we're just really appreciate that offer of help, and give the assurance in reverse that if the shoe were on the other foot, they could count on NMAX. The other thing just to mention is that we have put very much of a focus on ensuring supply, robust supply to critical infrastructure such as the hospitals, and we've done extra efforts in ensuring that, and those efforts have paid off. So beyond that, safety, 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 and then again safety. So top of mind, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dale. Stay up here with me. I'm sure people are going to have some questions. You've heard me say over the last 48 hours over and over again how blown away I am by the incredible dedication of all the people working to keep all of our neighbors safe. You haven't heard me specifically talk about those NMAX crews. And they are doing incredible work. They have been rerouting power lines. They have been figuring out how to get around shut down transformers and flooded substations. And the fact that they've been able to do that and keep critical infrastructure like our water treatment plants and our hospitals in place under incredibly trying circumstances is a testament to the hard work of every single person at that company. And I just want to say thank you, Dale. But through you, thank you to all the folks out there doing the hard work every minute of the day for the last few days and every day. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, Ross is going to handle the questions, so we are ready now for some questions.
Can you be clear, before we start, can you be clear who you're addressing your question to?
To the mayor. So, can you give us any more
Oops.
information about,
Yes.
can you be clear about what neighborhoods potentially could be?
I can't yet because we're judging those criteria. But we will, and we don't want to give anyone any false hope if they mishear the addresses. But we are judging the neighborhoods on a neighborhood by neighborhood, in fact, on a street by street basis. And those, I hope, if all goes well, those announcements will start coming fast and furious once we start clearing those criteria in each of those streets.
Well, Mayor,
Okay.
Chief Burrell indicated that half a dozen communities would likely be returned or more. Are we to assume that they're going to be in the periphery of the disaster zone, if they could use that term, those that suffered the least damage in the outlying?
You know, that's probably a fair assumption because obviously the first criterion needs to be that the water has to have receded. And we're not seeing a lot of rescission. I don't know if that's the right word, but it sounds good. Recession, rescission. In the areas right on the banks. I think it'll be a while before Alderman Hodges gets back to his house.
If I can ask a follow-up, the stampede has been it's a big deal for the city of Calgary. We've already made some statements that, I was going to say, come hell or high water, perhaps a bad phrase, of the stampede.
Oh.
Is going forward. Can you give us some more detail on that and provide any perspective on?
I don't know how to use a BlackBerry, sorry. So about the Stampede. We are Calgarians. We will figure out a way to make this work. It may not look the same as it did last year. I'm not so sure there's going to be a lot of demand for their giant aqua exhibit that they were planning on having. But it may look different, but certainly the City of Calgary is continuing to work with our partners at the Calgary Stampede to figure out what we can do here. We've started the conversations with them. We will continue those conversations. We'll have some announcements going forward. And I know that as the members of the Calgary Stampede Board representing the City of Calgary, Alderman Gordlow, Alderman Diane Collier-Cart, and myself will be part of those conversations. But I tweeted the folks at Alberta Boot today that I need to find some time to get a new pair of brown cowboy boots because I'm going to need them in 13 days.
So it will go on.
What, you want me to get a new hat too? I like my pecan hat. We're Calgarians. We're going to make it work. It may look different, but the show will go on.
About the mandatory outdoor water restrictions, what are the penalties for them? Will it be a enforcement?
Dan, what are the penalties under the water utilities bylaw? You know, primarily, of course, as with all of our restrictions, we look to Calgarians to comply, and we have extremely high rates of compliance. If there are folks who are violating the bylaw, of course, we do have the ability to enforce against that. And this is Dan Lineker, the director, who can help you with that.
Well, as you know, so many comments have come forward the last a couple of days about citizens' cooperation. I mean, obviously that's the first thing that we're looking for, and they've been so cooperative through this whole effort and in the past on our request for water restrictions. We will be asking if our bylaw folks to have a watch on this to make sure that compliance is in fact in place. We're not really, honestly, we're not looking at penalties aren't in the picture. It is compliance, and it's that ongoing effort of Calgarians to support the water restrictions.
Thanks, Dan.
Any other questions?
Just for, you mentioned Alderman Carroll, but I know Alderman Carroll and Alderman Mar have been probably sleepless in Calgary last couple.
I think all of us have been sleepless.
True. Just from your guys' perspective, if you guys wanted to come up one by one and just maybe
Sure.
describe exactly what you guys have seen and what you guys have heard out on the street while you're dealing with your respective communities.
Alderman Hodges, do you want to start with that?
Well, I always knew I had, our house is in a floodplain. What I didn't know is how bad it could really get. And this is the worst I've ever seen or heard of in the last 42, 43 years that I've lived on Bow Crescent. I don't know about Alderman Craw, he'll have some comments as well. You can't see the road down there at the west end. It looks like a lake. So if you want, some people want access to their house, you better take a canoe with you. Don't go, better yet. Don't go, better yet. As that photograph in the Herald this morning showed, Mr. Ederle in his canoe, he does live at that east end by Shouldice Bridge, but that's not a smart idea. This is really bad and the worst I've ever seen. So I think everybody's trying to work to get this thing sorted out, and hopefully it will be over the next few weeks. Yes, sir?
Are there additional patrols at all for neighborhoods that don't have an awful lot of the occupants in them? Is any greater police presence at all?
There's police at every entrance and exit to the community. In fact, 85th Street Bridge was closed yesterday when I tried to get across. I thought with all the traffic, the bridge is open. The bridge is not open. Bowness Road at Shouldice Bridge was closed. So I think that what they're trying to do is restrict access more than have a lot of patrols inside the area.
Alderman Craw?
Well, I've got sort of the tale of two flood experiences. Rideau, Roxborough, North Earlton are completely and totally inundated, and we're going to have to spend a lot of time rebuilding there. The community of Inglewood is sort of an island, uninundated, and I think that has a lot to do with the fact that the city, through our planning department, through our water services department, really engaged in a 20-year strategy for making that neighborhood flood-proof, and I think it's really, really paid off. So kudos to everybody who are a part of that. And you know, I've got 5 inches of water in my basement, and probably 8 feet above that water level on the other side of the dike wall is the Bow River raging, keeping the entire neighborhood dry. So I think we've got I think the other thing I've heard that I think.
What's the name of the fellow the berm is named after, the dedicated city employee?
Well, you know, I can tell you a lot of city employees participated in the construction of that berm, but at the end of 15th Street, we have a plaque that specifically calls out an exceptional civil servant, a guy named Ole Tenold, who passed away from cancer about 1.5 years ago, 2 years, and he is recognized amongst city staff as being just sort of an exceptional example of a perfect civil servant. But again, so many people contributed to that. I can tell you my neighborhood that I live in, Inglewood, is extremely grateful for all the planning and all the execution of flood protection that's happened there. And I think, I do want to say that 2005 wasn't anywhere near the level of a magnitude of an event, but the feeling amongst citizens and the feeling amongst first responders, who I've been spending a lot of time with, is that our response to this is so much better coordinated, and I think that has a lot to do with SEMA. I think that we've learned a ton from lessons in the past, and I expect we'll learn a ton moving forward from this. But I want to thank everybody for their work.
Thank you. Well, I'm not as inconvenienced as Alderman Hodges, but my entire family and extended family have been displaced, and we're holed up in in-laws in Edgemont. So thank you very much, Edgemont. It's
Ward 4.
Ward 4. I have to say, even coming into today's meeting and seeing all the city workers that we see every day with waste and recycling or communications or the law department, and the amount of work that they're doing and their commitment to the city really is humbling for me. And the work that average Calgarians are doing because they love their city and they're pulling together, it's a remarkable experience. I don't want to repeat it again, but it's been worth living through just because of just the amazing spirit that Calgarians are showing. So I wanted to thank everyone for the work that they've been doing. It really is quite something. Thank you.
Well, I'd first like to start out by thanking you, Your Worship, for your leadership. I want to pick out Alderman Putman's and Chief Burrell and City Manager Owen Tobert, because I was one of the people that signed the executive order to initiate this process. Without the support of the administration, who have been phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal, in helping us get through this crisis. The 2005 plan or experience that we went through helped to develop SEMA and helped to develop everything that you've seen working flawlessly right now. And we're standing on top of about 110 or 120 people that have been in the bunker here, literally 24 hours a day, working 12, 14, 16 hours a day, and their dedication is absolutely exemplary. The best examples of public servants. I've been at the shelters, and I've seen city staff after city staff and Calgarian after Calgarian volunteering in every department in the city of Calgary, and they're coming without being asked, Your Worship, and that's something that is absolutely extraordinary. We've gotten 100 police officers from the city of Edmonton. We have our own police officers and bylaw officers and roads and waste and recycling, everybody in every department in the city of Calgary working at all hours of the night under adverse conditions, and it's extraordinary. And Calgarians have come together like you wouldn't believe. Because, as you were saying, we are Calgarians and we will get through this. And this has been a humbling experience for me as an elected representative. People are out of their homes, but they're saying, how can I help?
Great.
People have lost everything, but they're saying, what can I do for my friends and neighbors? And that's extraordinary. Thank you.
So you get a sense of that. You know, certainly we have some of our colleagues who are deeply affected by this. As Alderman Carra pointed out, for example, Ward 9 covers the Elbow and the Bow River and a lot of the difficult areas. But every one of us is deeply devoted to making this thing work. And we did a quick straw poll, and I feel like, as with most Calgarians, most all of us are sheltering friends and family. I had no idea that senior citizens played cards so late at night until I learned more about my house guests, and we continue to do that. So again, thank you to the generosity of all Calgarians for that. I'll get to you in a sec. I just want, before I forget one thing, Alderman Chabot reminded me, because Alderman Chabot, as always, represents the best-hearted people in this city, and is reminding me that we have received overwhelming offers of support from people, from volunteers, from people who are helping with specific skills, as well as donations of services. So for now, there are certainly some services that we're interacting with people directly on. For example, our friends in the construction community who can help us with heavy equipment and pumps and things like that. For the rest of you who are so wanting to help your neighbors and your friends, we'll need you. We don't need you quite yet. The best thing you can do right now is, number one, rest up, because we're going to need you. And number two, again, stay close to home. Let the emergency workers do their job. We don't want to risk your safety in any way. But once we get into the recovery portion of that, and our next few briefings, we'll start to talk a little bit about recovery and what happens next. But once we get into the recovery portion, we, as well as a number of nonprofit agencies across this country, will be reaching out to the volunteer spirit of Calgarians, as we always do. And we know that Calgarians will always be there, as they always are.
One final question?
Yeah, I know it's tough to say, but how long until things are back to normal?
Define normal.
Until downtown is open and running again.
I'll answer that question in a whole bunch of phases. Number one aspect of normal is letting people sleep in their beds. And we're working hard to get people back into their homes, and that normalcy is starting to come back as early as today. But it will be several days at a minimum until people are back in their homes. There may be isolated pockets of homes that will go on even further than that. As for downtown, we don't anticipate anything even close to approaching normal until at least the middle of the week. There are some parts of downtown where we will have to measure that return to normalcy, not in days, but in weeks and months. But we will be able to continue operating, continue doing all the things that make this city great. And by the way, continue operating our civic government as well. Just for those of you who are City Hall followers, I should let you know that we will not be having our regular City Council meeting on Monday. But we will continue and get back to some state of normal operations as soon as we're able. Okay? Thank you all very much, as always. And I want to say, oh, you're never, ever going to hear me say this again. I want to say thank you to the media for being such great partners in getting critical information out to citizens when they need it, and for telling those great, enduring stories of citizens and the great work that we're doing across the city. So thank you all.
We're right outside the Emergency Operations building in Calgary now. We just had a press conference with Mayor Nenshi as well as City Council, and we asked how long until things are back to normal. And Nenshi classified normal as everyone sleeping in their own bed in their home. So it could be a very long time before that is even able to happen. It may be another couple of days before people are even back to their houses. Now, as for downtown Calgary, it could be even longer. We're looking at Wednesday as the possible day people will even be allowed to enter back into downtown. And even at that point, we're still looking at many buildings being closed off. So it could be weeks before downtown is back to business as usual. But overall, Council seemed very optimistic. People were happy, and for the situation anyways, people were smiling, and they seemed very optimistic that things are starting to get better and that we will see things start to get better in the next couple of days.